In 2009, my unit, which was the most degraded infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quezon, which we were attached to the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which conducts maritime operations all throughout Southeast Asia, in conjunction with the 7th Naval Fleet, which houses one landing helo deck, or HD, among LPDs, which is what I was on, called a USS Denver. Ironically, that's where I'm from. So now, during that operation in Quezon in the Philippines, they had actually heard that a tsunami and earthquake hit the western part of Sumatra, which is western Indonesia, Padang City more specifically. Out of all the ships in the 7th Fleet, the ship I was on was the only one that was brought to that location, which was oddly strange, but then again, this is my first humanitarian operation, so I don't know the logistics of it, but the skipper of the ship will probably know that information. So this happened September 30th. We end up getting called and dropped anchor around October 8th. We are briefed in the wardroom, which is the officers' mess, where they eat like their cafeteria per se. We're briefed that there is some of President Obama's family members that are present on either in the city or somewhere near there. They got a SEAL platoon that's ready to go to retrieve those people. Us knowing well that Indonesia is also the second largest terrorist capital, we will train these guys, and they'll send them up to whatever theater of operation where anybody wants a piece of the United States, they can just ship them up to go handle it. So we know that well, and we were then briefed that we were going to be armed during this operation, just to also provide security for the transportation coming to basically drop off medical supplies, sheltering items, food, purified water, things like that. So they ended up selecting certain Marines to go ahead and do this. We were only in sticks of six Marines, so it had NCOs on top of other Marines to help with that. So we again boarded CH-53 Super Stallions, which are gigantic helicopters. Favorites. We ended up boarding this on the ship. We flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different from satellite imagery that I'm used to seeing in the background. It's a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it. Basically, worst kind of scenario you could ever see. From then, once we touched down on this landing strip, it took probably about 2 minutes. And then again, I was got radio confirmation to go ahead and drop us into certain parts. So we again dropped to an easily, which took probably about 6-7 minutes to fly to from that position. And we dropped to ACLZ, we got off the bird, and what we were instructed to do at that point in the briefing was to push to a high ground place to get better observation. As a Marine, the tactical advantages we have from having observation from the top because you see everything clearly close there. At that time, we had did a tactical column, which we were able to get eyes on pretty much everything, so we have the effective communication at that point. If we need to engage, we can properly do it within the amount of ammunition we've got, as well as the weapons that we got, which were only M16A4s. So at that point, we decided to push forward. We trekked up about 300 meters. At this time, I have a Panasonic camera that has the ability to take photographs when we got to this high point, I was especially with jungle terrain, things like that, vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray, as well as a dark matte black. So in between, that's what it kept, and it was very smooth. We had all looked at each other as we got online, and we decided to investigate. The further thing I want to say is that I actually took pictures and video of this before we actually trucked down. We had a dump pouch where we basically, if we expend ammunition, we want to retain our magazines, so we put those there. So I dropped my camera in there, and we decided to go down. We didn't have any communications, which was weird, and that was a very odd thing, and it's something that either could have been good that we didn't, or it could have been something that could have been very bad. and it just how we were looking at it. Once we got down this slope, we were approximately 150 meters away from this craft. When we all got to the point where we could see it, which is like behind here, again, Mr. Trapp, phenomenal job. You can see that the craft here actually found roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. It was rotating in a clockwise motion. The panels here that you see, the black ones, at least 3 of them, was like a Vanta black, very dark. I have no idea what that was. On the very top, there was like a pyramid structure that you could see the shadowing of it. This was a pyramid structure. And it had a lot of kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10 or 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we have with more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on, they had no ranks, they had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps, they had M4A4s, they were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC 16 IO illumination devices that you use for navigation and controls, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them drop on us. We could audibly hear them flow the safety snipers out. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing there, how ought to be there, what were we doing there, threatened they could kill us right then and there, we could get lost in the jungle, they could throw us up a helicopter if we needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the reactions on their faces too. We were all freaking scared, to say nothing else. So, with that being said, each Marine was then patted down along with myself. We had our weapons taken from us. They were basically cleared in condition 4, which means they had no check magazine. They dumped the magazines out of the mat pouches as well. And then again, we were told to keep our military in the left breast pocket. So they knew that. They asked for a military information. Provided that to them, they had something like modern day smartphones, but this is 2009, so it's compared to today. So they took some pictures of our military ID, and then they had something that reminded me of a BAT system, which is a biometrics tracking system that we would use. This is for insurgents or any things like that. It would take fingerprints, it would take retina scans, it would take pictures of them and document them. So if there's other militaries that were coming to relieve our post, they would actually have this information too to know who they are dealing with. That's what it reminded me of, and I had trouble scanning the IDs. As this is going on, we're going back between these guys as well as what's going on in the background. At that time, there was 4 of these trucks, which were F-350s. They were up-armored, they were pretty beefy. They had weapon cases that I've seen before because of something that we've actually loaded weapons into. They had 2 of them in the back of each truck. They also had these containers that was illustrated right here, which, come to find out through recent revelations from yesterday from somebody that came forward to Dr. Greer, I don't know who they are, but what they had told him, what he's told me is that this gentleman knows exactly what these were used for because they have no secret articles either for us, but I hypothesize it's for lack of secret, which lead me to suspect that they were smuggling narcotics. Come to find out it's more disturbing than it says that it was for people. It's very disheartening, especially because that part of the world have already gotten ravaged, and it's something that is very hard to see right now because of what I've witnessed, and it's very disheartening. And this is why I'm up here. So they loaded these onto this platform that you can see right there, and as I got up there, like I said, I was going back and forth. These guys are still searching their stuff. They're still pointing weapons at us. And after the last 2 trucks that I saw actually got into that platform and loaded, they had 4 guys in each truck that were loaded. however they did it, I can't tell you because, again, I was focused on this as well. And these trucks drove off. As that happened, this platform actually rose up off the ground itself. The top part of the craft actually met it down in the middle like this, and formed one solid piece. It floated right above the tree line. As soon as it was able to break that tree line, it actually had on the corners of each of these, which was an octagon shape, by the way. On each corner, it illuminated a light. It was either red, yellow, green, or purple. One of those four colors like I was talking about. And then making additional high-pitched sounds when it rose up. Once it got past that tree line, it shot over to the left, basically where the ocean was. At so fast, I would estimate probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 miles an hour instantaneous like that. There was no rotor wash, no exhaust that would disturb the trees, vegetation. The coconuts that were on these trees were not even touched. It produced no sonic boom. This thing was so fast. So as that happened, they basically had told us to turn around. As we turned around, kind of a couple of things that went through my head at that point was that we're done. They actually started loading our magazines into our back into our vest in a way that would be hard to get them to put them into a weapon and to actually charge the weapon and actually put it around in the chamber. So they put those in. They actually slung our M16s on their back for us, but when they did it, the Marine Corps not really issued the best gear, especially at that time. So the slings back then were good safe subpar quality. Cut my neck pretty good, and that motion made sure they were secure, so we couldn't really get them as easy. And they escorted us back up this slope, and they told us we were not allowed to go back. Two, that we were not able to talk about this. They were actually, two of the guys were actually talking about either patients or that's what they kept saying. It was kind of feeding them to the fear at that point because I don't know who these guys are. I know they're American here, they're American firearms as well. If these guys have actually taken an oath like we have, and why they're going against people like us, and even willing to kill servicemen who just even stumbled onto this, it just blows my mind and it's very sick. So as we were up on top of this hill, we decided to book it, and we ran back to the LZ. There was a gunnery sergeant that was attached to the ship. I don't know the ship, but I know he's we were not combat effective at that point. If we needed to be, he asked specifically why we were. We didn't tell him exactly why. We just came up with an excuse, and then we waited for the next CH-53 to approach, and we got on board, flew back to the ship. We turned our weapons in back to the armory. We took our gear off back in our berthing, and we went upstairs to be debriefed by an admiral that I've never seen before, and it was kind of somebody who's out of place. I don't know if he has any kind of relevance to this at all, but if that's the case, if it is, I hope he comes forward with that information. It would be very helpful. So as we're going to go ahead and fast track to a couple days later, which we end up in Subic Bay, which is up the part of the Philippines. So we had 3 days there of liberty. The first night I come back, because we had to report back to the ship each night, we were not allowed to stay in the town. My rack was on my camera was on my rack, and the memory card that was in it was out, and my battery was out of the camera, missing as well. So all of that was missing. The only thing that was there was the camera. Mind you, I had my locker secured. I had other stuff that was basically piled on top of that camera. So whoever did it knew what the hell happened. So after that, the other thing that was also notable with that was each of the Marines that were with me also had their cell phones taken that they brought. Even though they didn't bring them on the mission, all their stuff was missing. The other stuff, the other people in the actual platoon never had their stuff touched. There was only us 6 that were affected. So fast tracking back when we returned back to Okinawa, one day I had got a call from during the day in the salute, he had pulled me into an office and he had said, "You are not allowed to tell anybody in your chain of command. I don't care if it's a general, I don't care if it's anybody. You are not allowed to talk about what happened. You can go to prison for this, or you could be killed. So he slid over a non-disclosure agreement, and it had two things that I can recall to this day as I quickly skimmed through it, because again, I thought we were going to forget about this whole mess. And one was said to SSC, and the other said so I was forced to sign that. I signed it. Before I did it, so I held it back, and I have not spoken about it ever since I was able to recently, because with the law passed. But that is my account for you guys. This is also an urgent for everybody in Washington, D.C. who's a political freedom. Please get this on the killed by this, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Please.